afternoon, all of you. What an interesting session that was. And from there, we move on to Insurtech and about tech innovations in insurance. And my panelists here, they need no introduction, Ashish, Avinash, Sriram. So insurance industry, in a way, is in a very interesting juncture now. And an industry where assessment of risk is the key word. Technology offers both challenges and opportunities. So my first question to you, Ashish, would be that what is the preparedness in terms of transitioning to digital underwriting? The challenges and the priorities that you see.
Good afternoon. So obviously, as we know, since morning we are discussing about the insurance entities preparation and preparedness with respect to the big goal set with respect to 2047, right? I've seen the kind of transition, the way obviously the business model has to be kind of evolved along with the time in terms of the volume management, in terms of the customer expectation, as well as the insurance companies' in-house goals and objectives. So from that point of view, obviously there has been a change over a period of time. So when I look at the way the risk and underwriting was used to happen a decade back, or for that matter even 2 decades back, versus what it is happening today is kind of completely different story. The way I envisage it to moving forward, goal and objective would have been obviously to look at the volumes and the scalability as a part of the solution, which itself is going to be a big task for all of us to look at in terms of how we are going to manage the volumes which we are kind of looking forward for. To that level of the preparation in terms of the scalability which needs to be offered, along with the entire ecosystem which needs to be kind of be supportive for us, all of us, in terms of making this bigger task kind of achievable and possible to kind of do it on that side of it.
Sriram, if I can ask the same question to you from HDFC and the kind of profile of your sectors that you cater to, the challenges and the priorities there for you.
No, I think digital underwriting is something that's not new per se. I think in the retail lines of business, we have been having it for some time. Maybe from a SME and from a corporate perspective, maybe that's kind of picking up. But clearly, it's not just about tech being ready. The product construct, we heard, it was a very nice session we had of the corporate customers being here, sharing some of their experiences. But it's kind of, also about the product construct. How do you offer personalized, offerings, for customers with their specific needs? It's about the process. How do you kind of streamline it, make it, digital end-to-end, a straight-through process? Because for a long time, we have kind of over-relied on, workflow systems. So technology may, till a few years back, there used to be a very big component called a business process management system, where, it would just facilitate moving papers from one desk to another. So when I'm saying process, there is a re-engineering part on the process where you kind of make it straight through end-to-end. And then, of course, the technology that's permitting it. But clearly, with the focus, the development agenda set by the regulator, and we heard the chairman earlier in the day, that's kind of, really pushed the envelope in terms of making new product constructs, getting it into the market. Thinking really, advanced in terms of making the processes digitized end-to-end, straight through processing. And then, obviously, the technologies behind supporting. I think from a HDFC ERGO perspective, we are, I would say well placed to kind of capitalize for some of these developments. We are, from a tech perspective, we have a huge focus on transformation, which has been going on for the last few years. So from a front-end perspective, from a back-end perspective, we have critical initiatives going on. But more importantly, the API layer, as we would call it, that's kind of become a very key focus, because that's really, the engine which powers, how you go to market, and especially empower our distribution channels to be able to better service customers. So I think from that perspective, we are pretty well placed. Needless to say, the technology evolution itself has helped a lot. cloud has given a big fillip to this, and then on top of it, Gen AI since the last, 1 year plus, I would say. Again, Gen AI is just one variant. I think AI ML has been around for a long time now, but all of these have also contributed in their own significant way. So we are kind of moving with the flow.
It's interesting that you give the reference of Gen AI and this thing. So, Avinash, if I can ask you a related question, that what kind of difference that you think an AI-powered underwriting can bring about?
So, first of all, I would, agree with what Sriram has said, right? I mean, in terms of digital underwriting, a lot has been done over the last few years. But what is happening, I think, with AI coming to the fore, especially in the areas of underwriting, in the areas of claim, and with Gen AI now over the last 12 months, we are seeing newer models coming in. What I believe it is going to do is it is going to help you, get more power out of the data that you have. So like Sriram said, I mean, we have a lot of customer data today. So a lot of structured data exists. So AI, the underlying ML will help you use that data to be able to give you better underwriting results, better pricing for your customers. More importantly, how to identify fraud at the time of sale, which is a big focus area for all of us. So that was one part of the story. And with Gen AI coming in, I believe that it is only going to supplement this process. Especially, let's say, if I take the example of health underwriting, there is a ton of documents that the underwriter has to go through at times. Now, can Gen AI summarize those documents and bring it in a format that is very easily available for the underwriters to be able to take decisions, and best case, maybe automate that decision? I think that is where we see the next stage of digital underwriting through AI and Gen AI, moving forward.
It's interesting that you mention about, the scope, the risk of fraud. So, in the current context, and if I can ask you, Ashish, about it, that, in the current context, how can you leverage technology in kind of identifying or know your fraudster, or use fraud analytics to kind of make a difference?
Sure. So I'll like to extend what Avinash mentioned, right? So from underwriting perspective, obviously the right set of documents, which is something, or artifacts is something which we need to kind of collate on behalf of the customer to see whether the points which we are trying to look at from underwriting perspective is there or not. Now, one of the points which will also be looked upon is very clearly, for example, the proof with respect to date of birth, right? From a Indian nation perspective, the way the varied geography has to kind of deal with that part of it in terms of the variety of the documents can be put forward from the customer point of view, that has to be understood by the underwriting engine very clearly. So that is where I made a mention earlier saying the entire ecosystem has to be kind of looked upon very clearly in terms of what are the acceptable proof which are going to be acceptable, and therefore the entire system has to be devised, defined, and therefore executed to that level. Now when we talk from various states perspective, various region perspective, each and every region will have their own way to look at and produce these particular documents by the customer. How do you understand that part of it, whether it is really genuine or whether it is not genuine, is the point which will come up very, very clearly. And that's where everyone within the ecosystem has to look at very clearly saying this is something which we need to kind of address to reduce the fraud or to arrest the fraud at the earliest level.
Sriram, if I can ask you the related question that, how do you see these new demands and imperative emerging from the perspective of data security concerns, from that perspective, if you can throw light on that?
Okay, from a data security perspective, clearly I think the explosion in the amount of data that is kind of generated nowadays has kind of, thrown a new set of challenges. There was always, the structured data elements which were there. And for a long time, technology was kind of, built to secure those elements. But, now we have a lot more unstructured data coming in. So the entire paradigm of security has changed. See, again, security is a very interesting problem. You can have a whole lot of technologies implemented to secure your, systems end to end. but it's really, the weakest link is really, the end user. That's the toughest thing to deal with. If there is a leakage which is kind of, propitiated by a user, not any of the technologies can really, because the industry is also evolving. I mean, we talked about fraud. This fraud itself as an industry has become a phenomenon now. So, there are a set of people, there are a set of technologies which are available only for, pushing the fraud agenda. So, it becomes very difficult from that perspective. So, our philosophy is kind of, we try to deal it at 3 different levels. At the bottom level, I think making people aware about their roles, their responsibilities, and ensuring that they are aware about, what are those. Many times, the leakages happen, without even people knowing it, just because they are not informed. So, educating people is a very important part. The second part is obviously, from a security perspective, there is the brass tacks, as I would call it, which most organizations, I believe, will have, but you will have to keep investing in it. There was a time when, there was not a lot of focus on securing the data that flows over the network. We always used to be happy that, if your perimeter is kind of, secure, then you are good. But, you have to look at it from both ends. You'll have to look at it from the end compute as well as the network, because the network is where most of the action is happening nowadays. So how do you secure the entire thing? That's really where all the technologies come in. And then the third, which is the more advanced layer, where, you can use some of these modeling techniques to see, detect the aberrations which are happening, early enough to be able to react to it. So that's more the proactive stuff that needs to be done on security. Again, a lot of technology firms have started investing, building AI into the, security products. But it's always, for me, how much ever you do is always is not enough. And we have to keep reinventing. But yeah, sticking to the basics and ensuring that, some of the education parts, the training parts is done very rigorously. That's a very, very important cog in the wheel of, keeping an enterprise secure.
Yeah, Avinash, you heard Sriram made the point, even Ashish was referring to it. If you could elaborate on your views on the trends in data quality, and where do you see, technology playing a role there?
Coming from a GI background, I would say that data quality had always been a challenge for us, because obviously insurance, number one, is an intermediated industry. So even today, while we talk about digitization and all the fancy stuff, the reality is that bulk of the business comes through intermediaries. Now, the biggest question is, whether the intermediary owns the customer or the company owns the customer, right? The reality is the agents, the intermediaries would still hold a lot of data, a lot of information about the customers. Now, a blessing that happened for GI last year was that KYC became mandatory. So that's one giant leap that we took, and today we are able to identify our customers uniquely. So that is one big step in, improving data quality, because once you have a unique identifier of a customer, then there is a lot that you can do. So then there is secondary data that you get from third-party sources. So there are these, so we have IIB databases, there are third-party databases which we are using to enrich our customer database. So that is helping us improve our data quality. Last but not the least, we have actually very recently migrated onto a modern data platform that actually kind of helps us give a data quality score against each of our core attributes. So that helps us to, kind of put it on your face to businesses, saying, hey, this is the quality of data that is coming in. Garbage in is a garbage out. And we are presenting that to the businesses to tell them, hey, this needs to be stopped at the source. You cannot be giving me junk data. There are certain businesses where, the contactability and other parameters are close to 100%, but there are certain businesses where it is not even 50%. So those kind of insights we are able to now provide to our end users, and businesses, and then, try to fix that at the source. So I think that is definitely a journey that has matured over the last couple of years. And with the advent of external data, I think that is only going to mature over a period of time.
That's a very interesting point, and if I can, ask you, Ashish, on the same thing. You referred to one use case about date of birth proof. If you can use a couple of, if you can, throw light on a couple of such use cases on how the difference that data today in technology can make in the insurance industry.
Sure. So other one could be when you want to have a death claim. What is the certificate which is available for you to say the claimant is talking about the death of the policy holder? How do you kind of really genuinely check it up and say yes to it, right? And therefore help with respect to the faster claim process. That is the ultimate expectation to be delivered. Now, when we look at that aspect also, it will be going from the panchayats of the world, whereby they have kind of different format to kind of give you that certificate with, whereas the municipalities of the states or the cities, which will have a different format altogether. When we look at the technology conversion part of it, all of these physical documents has to be converted into digital form and kind of looked at very clearly with respect to the whole system which is put in place. How do you achieve a fine balance with respect to identifying the right state of the documents which are submitted, the authenticity of it, and therefore make it kind of more digital in terms of the claim payments to be processed very, very fast, is the point which will come up as a second use case as well.
You wanted to add a point to that, Sriram, on the use cases?
From a use case perspective, when you look at a data lens, I think we'll go back to the personalization piece, and the art of possible today is, there's a lot more that you can do. Of course, I think KYC has added that much needed dimension to us. Our DQ, the data quality is much better now compared to what it was a few years back. But being in a position to deep mine on the data and make that, that specific. So we heard a lot in the previous panels about, having customized product offerings. Today, all of that is possible. So that's one part of it. You can now actually create specific offerings. So what we are doing in our company is, we are now no longer not talking about products, we are talking about covers. And being in a position to actually let the customers be in a position to pick up covers, what they want, what is relevant for them, based on their appetite and how much they can pay, and then kind of make their own product. That's something that we are working on. So that's one part of the personalization bit. The second is kind of analyzing patterns of, what people have bought, and then being in a position to nudge or, give that particular suggestion to the user. So, and that's where, GenAI also becomes very useful. We also talked about talent in one of the earlier panels. So, the retail products, have been sold for many, many years, and it's kind of, it's got ingrained into, the way the agents work, the way the partners work in the ecosystem. That's not the case with MSME, as a channel, and, with the products there. A lot more education that you need to do. So that's where, the data kind of, combined with these prompts, this nudges which you can give to a partner to be able to pitch to a particular customer. So, when I as an agent am sitting in front of a customer, especially an MSME customer or a corporate customer, now I'm able to also kind of, with the system giving prompts, be in a position to better address his needs. That's, data at work actually. And moving further, I think clearly, the pricing and, I would kind of still leave it at pricing, not go into discounting, but the pricing can be much more accurate, as you get more and more data points. IoT is something that's not really taken off in India. That's really, picking up steam in the Western countries. I'm sure it's a matter of time before, that comes into India as well. And when customers deploy more and more of these risk mitigation technologies in place, IoT can also kind of, help us, insurers be able to better understand the risk and then be, in a better position to, price that risk. So a lot of things is powered finally by the data, but, a lot more that's possible, and that we can hope that in the next few years will happen.
While we talk a lot about these, the preparedness in terms of the industry, one very important thing when we are talking of transitioning is the talent that the industry is depending upon for this transition. So if I can ask you, Avinash, that, where do you see talent right now? Do you see there's a crunch, or you see if you could just
Yeah,
elaborate.
so talent is a problem today. Interestingly, during COVID, you saw, a lot of people kind of going to greener pastures, people getting better opportunities. But what has happened is, see, since the last couple of years, technology has been moving so fast, especially with, let's say, something like Gen A. Every other day, you're going to hear something new, a newer model coming in, or a newer model being able to do something different. For example, we just yesterday heard about Anthropic's cloud being able to do computer tasks. Now, what does that mean, right? You need somebody to analyze that, and maybe when something else comes today, somebody else needs to also analyze that to be able to say, what this means to your business. So while there is a lot of experience within the organization in terms of their ability to understand insurance, their experience over the past around all the processes and the existing technology, but we also see there is a big need for talent that can pick up newer technologies and experiment with them very, very quickly. So which is where we see the old and the new coexisting. Now, where is this new going to come from is going to be the biggest question, right? I mean, today in the 5-second video kind of a world, the youngsters are not very keen on sticking to a job for a longer period of time. But what we have realized is, things like intern to hire, hack to hire, hack to intern. Those are some programs that we have run very successfully. And you'll be amazed that, youngsters, third-year engineering college students are able to build an application in 48 hours in a technology that's unheard of. So that is the dramatic shift that we see. On one side, we have a legacy that has the business and the domain knowledge. On the other hand, you have these youngsters who are very impatient, get bored very easily, but can solve your problem in a couple of days, which would have probably taken a few months to solve. So it's important for us to get both of these to work together and see how we can keep them interested, rather than saying, hey, this is how it needs to work. This is the time you need to come to work. These are the number of hours you need to put at office. I think we need to somehow come to a common ground where it becomes a win-win for both these generations.
Keeping them interested is the keyword right now also, as all of you are waiting for your lunch breaks. But before that, one quick word, if I could have from each one of you. I'll start with you, Ashish. Like, going forward for the next 5 years, if you had to, the 3 things that you think tech innovations in insurance that is required or that will lead the way.
I think I will restrict to only one. And I think this is probably going to be useful for every one of us. Fraud is one of the point which kind of keeps coming up very clearly again and again across, whether on life insurance side, whether health insurance side, or whether non-life. And if you have a kind of common repository being done, whereby one can refer to see the cases and then look at underwriting as well as the risk management part of it, I think all of us are going to get immensely benefited out of it. While many of the organizations would have implemented a blockchain technology for taking care of it in terms of the accuracy and integrity of data part of it, if the same framework can be extended across the sector, where everyone can kind of participate and look at the database readily, I think it's going to be useful for every one of us. And to that level, the penetration and the effectiveness of the solution, the insurance, the way we would like to cater to our customers, individually or collectively, I think it will be the goal achieved there. So I will look at only one single thing to happen there. And that's where we need to work, all of us.
Efficiency and effectiveness through innovation for you, Sriram?
See, if we have to talk about innovation, for me, I would kind of put it slightly different. Definitely resonate with what my colleague here said, but for me, it's all about, being in the ecosystem and being in a position to collaborate and contribute. Gone are the days where, you were, on your own kind of trying to do everything. It's a very, very internet world today, and it's very important to be, in the ecosystem play. And there are so many insurtechs, so many fintechs. I wouldn't just restrict to fintechs and insurtechs, but the startup ecosystem as a whole has so much to offer. So how do we kind of, as enterprises, how can we kind of, knit all of that into, the offerings that we offer in the market and present it in a way and form which is most suited for the customers who are able to consume. So that's really for me the biggest thing, which is why actually we kind of, step back. We said, insurance is not such a glamorous industry. Our products are pretty standard, and for the risk of saying it, I'll say, also stale. Now there is some freshness which is coming into the products. But we realized that, there is more that's got to go to the customer, and which is where we realized, a couple of years back that we had to get the mind share of people. If you get the mind share, the market share follows. So we went about and built the insurance ecosystem. We believe, that's the first in the Indian market, where we said, let's kind of build something which is appealing to a larger customer base, of which insurance is one part of it. So, we have tried to stitch together a lot, and, we've launched an ecosystem called Here. I believe, that's something that we would kind of stay invested in, trying to work on the partnership mode and see how to, give maximum value to our customers.
And Avinash, if I can ask you, what is your prescription to bring glamour to insurance with innovation?
No, I think what Sriram and Ashish both said, I think both are equally important. I completely believe in the ecosystem. How do you partner with insurtechs? Because see, the biggest problem with PNC is you can sell anything and everything under the sun except for life. So what all are you going to focus on, right? I mean, it's very exciting to say, I'm going to solve this, but at the end of the day, you can't do everything. So you have to pick your battles and pick the right partners to be able to deliver value across the value chain. And like Ashish said, fraud has always been an area of interest where innovation will play a key role. Be it GenAI. So with GenAI, we're trying to solve a lot of problems around fraud, documentation fraud, and so on. So that's going to be an interesting area, but an area which, in my opinion, hasn't been really touched as much from an innovation perspective, in my opinion, is on the sales side. So while a lot has been done or talked about on the underwriting, claims, fraud, side of it, we haven't really innovated on the sales side. What have we done for the end users, the end salespeople? I think that's an area where I would definitely want to see more and more insurtechs focusing on. While there have been platforms, more mobile apps being built, I wouldn't really call that innovation in today's day and age. How do you empower them to sell more? How do you empower them to cross-sell, upsell? I mean, those are all good terms to hear about, but have we really implemented that in practice? I think we're not even scratched the surface. So I would like to see that coming. I don't know how, but that's something I'd be very keen to see.
So upsell and upskill, that is how technology and innovations in the insurance sector seem to be. And like, as all my panelists here, they said that delivering value is ultimately the key. We would not like to hold you on any longer. With that note, we come to an end to this conversation. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you.